If there's one name that defines a short but unforgettable bodybuilding career, it's Mike François. His time on stage was like a comet, fast, intense, and brilliant. In just a few short years, he left a mark that still echoes among fans of bodybuilding's golden era. But what made this athlete so special? What was behind that colossal, granite-like physique that looked as if it had been carved by hand? In the 1990s, the bodybuilding world was packed with legendary giants, yet Mike still managed to stand out among them. His body was impressive not just for its sheer size, but for its density, proportion, and raw power, a rare balance, even for that era. It wasn't only about being huge, it was about harmony, about controlled power. He seemed to merge brute strength with the calm focus of someone who trained with real purpose. The peak of Mike's career came in 1995, when he stepped onto the Arnold Classic stage and defeated the legendary Flex Wheeler, one of the most respected and complete athletes in the sport's history. That victory wasn't just another trophy, it was a statement. A new name had joined the ranks of the greats. Fans were stunned, judges recognized his excellence, and the bodybuilding world suddenly had its eyes on Mike, expecting a brilliant future. But destiny often has different plans. Just as his rise had been meteoric, his fall was just as sudden. Severe health problems forced him out of competition at the height of his career, cutting short a journey that seemed destined for the Mr. Olympia podium. To really understand how that happened, though, we need to go back a bit in time. Mike François' story begins in Cascade, Iowa, a small American town where he was born on March 4, 1965. He grew up in a big, close-knit Catholic family that valued discipline and faith. From a young age, Mike stood out for his reserved nature, the kind of kid who'd rather watch and learn before acting, head slightly down, but with a quiet determination that people couldn't ignore. Despite his shyness, Mike was a natural athlete. He played just about everything: baseball, wrestling, basketball, track and field, and especially football. He was competitive, driven, and had a love for challenges that made him stand out in any sport. His strong, athletic frame already hinted at the physical potential that would one day make him a bodybuilding phenomenon. Then fate intervened again. During a college football game, a serious knee injury ended his dream of going pro. For many, that would have been the end of the road. For Mike, it was the start of a new one. Unable to play football, he began going to the gym just to stay in shape. And it was there, surrounded by iron and mirrors, that the future colossus of bodybuilding began to take form. The funny thing is, at that point, Mike had no plans whatsoever to become a professional bodybuilder. He trained out of passion, out of necessity, and maybe as a way to find himself again after losing the sport he loved. He was just a young guy trying to rebuild, unaware that this new habit would soon become his calling. The environment he grew up in also shaped his character deeply. Coming from a devout Catholic family, Mike learned early the value of faith, hard work, and humility. That spiritual foundation would become a pillar in his life, shaping not only the athlete, but the man who would later face unimaginable challenges. After the injury that changed his life's course, Mike François made a decision few would expect from a young athlete. He entered the Pontifical College Josephinum in Ohio, determined to become a priest. Guided by faith and a desire to serve God, he spent 7 years studying theology, immersed in prayer, study, and reflection. It was a period of silence, discipline, and deep inner growth. Even during seminary, Mike never completely gave up training. Lifting weights became a kind of physical meditation for him, a complement to his spiritual life. While most people saw the gym as a place for the body, he saw it as a metaphor for life itself. Every rep was an act of faith, every workout a prayer in motion. Without realizing it, the future athlete was building not only muscle, but also an unshakable inner strength. And it was in that quiet rhythm of prayer and routine that fate brought someone special into his life: Shannon, the woman who would change everything. In his final year at the seminary, just before ordination, Mike fell in love. And faced with that new feeling, he had to make a difficult choice: follow the call to priesthood or listen to the call of his heart. The decision wasn't easy. It took months of reflection, prayer, and spiritual guidance. But in the end, love spoke louder. Mike left the seminary and chose to spend his life with Shannon, whom he married in 1991. What many might have seen as a detour, he saw as the beginning of a new purpose. His faith hadn't left him. It had simply taken on a new form, one that was more human, more connected to everyday life. Even outside of formal religious life, Mike kept his spirituality present in everything he did. He continued attending Mass every Sunday, even during his travels and competitions. His faith became the foundation that would sustain him through life's hardest moments, especially when his health and career would later be put to the test. After leaving the seminary and setting out on a new path, Mike threw himself into the world of bodybuilding. In 1987, he began training seriously, first focusing on powerlifting, where he built an incredible foundation of strength. The quiet kid from Iowa had found a new kind of altar, the gym, and it was there, surrounded by bars and plates, that he rediscovered his sense of purpose, to push himself beyond his limits every single day. His natural talent for the sport didn't take long to show. That same year, he stepped on stage for the first time and won the Ohio Valley Open, proving he wasn't just another competitor. He was someone to watch. 3 years later, in 1990, his victories at the World Gym Classic and the Ohio State Championships cemented his presence in the amateur scene. People were beginning to realize there was something special about this calm, determined man with the focused gaze. Mike wasn't the kind of athlete obsessed with fame or attention. While others chased the spotlight, he focused on perfecting every detail, every muscle, every pose. His idols weren't just the biggest names, but the most disciplined ones. He admired guys like Tom Platz, known for his insane intensity, and Ron Love, a model of consistency and work ethic. That mindset, quiet, methodical, unshakable, was what carried him step by step to the top of the American amateur scene. In 1993, the turning point arrived. Mike won the NPC National Championships, earning the long-awaited IFBB Pro card. It was the reward for years of silent dedication. From that moment on, he was no longer just a promising amateur. He was officially part of the world's bodybuilding elite. For a man who had almost become a priest, it was a different kind of calling, but one that demanded the same spirit of devotion. With his new status came new challenges. Mike was now preparing to compete shoulder to shoulder with the sport's greatest legends, men who were icons both on stage and in magazines. Still, he wasn't intimidated. The year was 1994, and the bodybuilding world was starting to take notice of a new name, Mike François. His professional debut was nothing short of spectacular. In his very first season, he won 2 major titles, the Chicago Pro Invitational and the Night of Champions. It was rare for a rookie to make that kind of impact, but Mike made it clear he wasn't there just to compete. He was there to win. The following year, he would write the most glorious chapter of his career. In 1995, he stepped onto the stage at the Arnold Classic, one of the most prestigious competitions in the world, and made history. Facing legends like Flex Wheeler, Mike presented a jaw-dropping physique, 245 pounds, about 111 kilos, of pure density and symmetry, blending strength and elegance in near-perfect balance. The audience went silent for a few seconds, and then erupted in applause. The underdog had just beaten the favorite. That Arnold Classic victory didn't just crown his talent. It placed him among the greats of the 90s. A few months later, he also won the San Jose Pro Invitational, confirming that his rise was no fluke. And then came his debut at the Mr. Olympia, the stage of bodybuilding gods. Even against monsters like Dorian Yates and Nasser El Sanbadi, Mike placed 7th, an impressive feat for a newcomer. But what really set François apart wasn't just his physique, it was his attitude. He was disciplined, humble, and laser-focused. There was no room for distractions, excess, or ego. While others chased fame, he chased excellence. His body was a reflection of something deeper: faith, purpose, and an almost spiritual drive to make the most of the gift he'd been given. Fans and judges alike began to realize that Mike had something different. He wasn't just another athlete trying to reach the top. He was a man on a mission. His presence on stage radiated strength, calm, and confidence. He was the kind of competitor who didn't need to say much. Just stepping under the lights was enough to prove he belonged among the elite. And just like that, in only 2 years, Mike François went from total obscurity to becoming one of the most respected names in bodybuilding. Many believed he was destined to become a Mr. Olympia champion, and maybe he really was. Offstage, though, when people talked about intensity, Few names carried as much weight as Mike's. He was famous for his brutal training sessions, the kind that separated the strong from the truly relentless. Mike believed the human body was capable of far more than we imagine, as long as the mind was willing to go all the way. And he did, every single day. His gym sessions were legendary. Mike trained with insane weights, even by the standards of the giants of his time. His squats hit 735 pounds, around 333 kilograms, for 5 reps, and his deadlifts reached a staggering 795 pounds, about 360 kilograms. But the secret wasn't just in the weight, it was in the execution. He preached perfection in every rep, with total control and zero momentum. For him, every set was a commitment to excellence. Mike approached training with surgical precision, hitting every muscle group from multiple angles to extract the maximum stimulus. He didn't believe in magic formulas, just consistency. His signature movement was the deadlift, which he saw as the cornerstone of real back thickness and power. When asked for his secret, he'd simply say, "Isolate the muscle, focus on the contraction, and never let your mind drift out of the workout." His mindset in the gym was almost spiritual. Training was his form of meditation, a meeting point of body, mind, and purpose. No rush, no distractions, just absolute focus. For Mike, heavy training wasn't punishment, it was gratitude in motion. Every drop of sweat was like a silent prayer of strength and faith. That philosophy guided his entire career. He wasn't just chasing more weight or more size. He was trying to grow as a human being through discipline. Behind Mike's monumental physique was a near superhuman level of self-control, most visible in his diet. He followed a meticulously planned eating routine. 5 meals a day, no exceptions, no slip-ups. For him, every bite was part of the process, and nothing could compromise the mission. Nutrition, to Mike, was sacred fuel for the body and the mind. During his bulking phases, he ate roughly 6,000 calories a day, but it wasn't junk food. Every calorie came from clean, balanced sources: lean proteins, quality carbs, and healthy fats. He believed your body reflects what you feed it, and if you want extraordinary results, you have to nourish yourself in an extraordinary way. Even experts were impressed by his numbers: between 1.5 and 2 grams of protein per pound of body weight, an enormous intake to maintain a physique of over 245 pounds, around 111 kilograms. His carb intake shifted depending on the training phase. During contest prep, he'd cut it down to the bare minimum, testing the limits of endurance and focus. What stood out the most, though, was his attitude toward dieting. Mike never saw it as a sacrifice. To him, eating right wasn't an obligation, it was part of the mission. He used to say that true discipline doesn't come from effort, but from clarity of purpose. His purpose was simple: to be the best he could be, honoring the body God gave him, and giving back through total dedication. That mindset set him apart from the rest. While many athletes battled the temptation of cheat meals, Mike simply didn't feel the need. His willpower was an extension of his faith, a calm confidence that the reward would come to those who did everything the right way. He trained hard, ate clean, and rested with precision. His life was a routine of iron, built on solid values. But like every athlete, even the unbreakable Mike François wasn't immune to the toll of years of extreme dedication. By 1996, something started to feel off. He was constantly tired, losing strength, and dealing with a deep fatigue that no amount of rest could fix. At first, he brushed it off, assuming it was just the result of heavy training. But over time, his body began sending signals he could no longer ignore. During prep for the 1997 Mr. Olympia, the harsh truth hit. He was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis, a severe inflammation of the large intestine. Even in pain and weakness, Mike refused to quit. He competed anyway, pushing through excruciating cramps and exhaustion. He finished in 11th place, a result that, for many, would seem disappointing, but given his condition, it was nothing short of a miracle. Few people knew that behind the scenes, he was fighting for his life. Right after the competition, his condition worsened dramatically. Mike was rushed to the hospital for emergency surgery to remove part of his intestine. What followed was a nightmare: internal bleeding, sepsis, liver and heart complications. Doctors doubted he'd make it. For days, he hovered between life and death. and later confessed that, in the chaos, he actually heard the doctors saying, "We're losing him." If there was one thing Mike François never lost, it was his faith. Supported by his family and anchored in his belief in God, he pulled through. He spent weeks in the ICU, drifting in and out of consciousness, often unaware of what year it was or where he was. Each sunrise felt like a small miracle, and when he was finally discharged, he knew his competitive career was over. Yet, remarkably, there was no bitterness in his heart. Mike never blamed bodybuilding, steroids, or fate. He simply accepted that his journey had fulfilled its purpose. To him, everything was part of a bigger plan. The same faith that had led him to the seminary early in life now helped him understand that maybe the stage was no longer where he was meant to shine, but rather in life itself, and through the people he could still inspire. The body that once made him a champion had nearly destroyed him, but his spirit remained unbreakable. And with that same spirit, Mike François was reborn, not as a competitor, but as a living example of strength, courage, and hope. After the storm, Mike chose to move forward, not as an athlete, but as a man of faith and wisdom. The ordeal that almost cost him his life also marked the beginning of a new mission. He officially announced his retirement from competitive bodybuilding, closing the chapter on a short but powerful career. But contrary to what many expected, stepping away from competition didn't mean stepping away from the sport he loved. Instead of leaving bodybuilding behind, Mike decided to give back. He founded a training and nutrition consultancy, dedicating himself to coaching athletes and beginners with the same discipline and sincerity he'd always shown. His method was simple, direct, and deeply human. He didn't sell shortcuts or magic formulas. He taught discipline, patience, and faith in the process. It was the wisdom of the stage, now serving everyday people. Over time, his influence only grew. He launched the NPC Mike François Classic, an annual bodybuilding event held in Ohio that became a symbol of motivation and opportunity for new competitors. He also wrote for major magazines like Muscle and Fitness and Flex, where he shared his insights on training, nutrition, and mindset. His writing was straightforward, honest, and full of purpose, just like his training style. But Mike didn't stop there. His calm presence and genuine authenticity caught the attention of sports media, and he went on to host American Muscle magazine, a show aired on ESPN. With his composed demeanor and steady voice, he showed that true strength isn't just in muscle, it's in the ability to inspire. He became a personal trainer, speaker, and life mentor, helping hundreds of people find balance between body and spirit. Even long after leaving competition, Mike François remained a champion. He proved that pain can be turned into purpose, and that the greatest victories don't always come with trophies. His story is that of a man who lost nearly everything: his career, his health, his spotlight, but found something far greater: the meaning behind his journey. And so, the former bodybuilder reinvented himself. He traded the stage for words, trophies for example, and physical perfection for the mission of transforming lives. Away from the spotlight, Mike built a simple, steady, and purpose-filled life. Married to Shannon, the woman who had changed the course of his story, he found balance between faith, family, and health. Together, they created a home grounded in Christian values, where love and spirituality always came before material success. That foundation kept Mike strong, even through the toughest trials. Today, he remains active in his church and community, participating in social projects and inspiring others to live with more discipline and faith. To his students and followers, Mike isn't just a former bodybuilder. He's a mentor who teaches that real strength comes from within. His presence is calm, but his message hits deep. Taking care of your body matters, but taking care of your soul matters more. At the height of his career, Mike was known as the Beast from the East, a nickname that captured his raw power and training intensity. But behind that title was a man with a generous heart, someone who learned that power doesn't mean hardness, and greatness isn't measured by muscle, but by how you treat others. Even with a short career, the legacy of Mike François goes beyond time. He embodied, like few others, the balance between faith, discipline, and strength. He inspired generations of athletes with his determination, humility, and his ability to rise again when everything seemed lost. For many, he remains one of bodybuilding's greatest what-ifs. That rare talent the world saw burn bright, but far too briefly. But maybe that's exactly what makes him unforgettable. His story isn't just about victories and trophies. It's about resilience, purpose, and faith. Mike François showed that true greatness lies in continuing to fight, even when the body gives out, and that the human spirit, when guided by faith, can overcome any limit. So now that you've heard his story, what do you think? Do you believe Mike could have become one of the greatest of all time if fate hadn't changed his path? Tell us down in the comments. We'd really love to hear your thoughts. If you enjoyed this video and believe stories like his deserve to be remembered, hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow and reach more people. And don't forget to subscribe if you're not part of the community yet. If you'd like to support our work even more closely, consider becoming a channel member. It helps us keep this passion for bodybuilding history alive. And of course, don't go anywhere. On the end screen, you'll see another video you'll definitely enjoy. Another story just as inspiring as this one. Click it and keep watching, because here, the golden past of bodybuilding comes to life with every episode. See you in the next video. Big hug, and keep striving to become your best self.